Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
Bill sent me a story from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, and this shows you the extent to which civil asset forfeiture has come, and it's crazy. But we've discussed before the idea that the police can pull you over and they find money on you, or they encounter you someplace and they find money on you. They just take the money. And they go, yeah, money's, we think it's some kind of bad money, so we're going to take it from you. And if you want your money back, you have to sue us to get your money back. And I've talked about this in several videos before, and about how, among other things, the U.S. Supreme Court has said, for the most part, that's okay. If you want your money back, you sue to get your money back. And if you can prove the money is innocent, then you get your money back. And you have to pay your own attorney fees along the way. So if it's not a lot of money, it might not be worth even chasing. And so we've discussed that one of the problems with this is it incentivizes the police department to take your money, because quite often the departments that seize the money get to use the money as they see fit. And it's worse than that, because that's what this story is about. What happens to that money once an organization takes it? What do they do with it? Do they put it to good use? Do they use it to fight crime? Well, according to an article by Chris Joyner and Bill Rankin of the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, it's like a slush fund. Revenue agents bought pricey perks with seized assets. Pricey gym equipment, commemorative Super Bowl badges, golf carts, $130 sunglasses, and stress balls shaped like beer mugs and wine bottles. These are things that they spent that stolen money on. For years, a state revenue division has used millions of dollars from assets seized in criminal investigations to buy trinkets, travel, engraved firearms, tactical gear, a fleet of cars, and personal items. This is according to an investigation by the newspaper and Channel 2 Action News. The Office of Special Investigations of the Georgia Department of Revenue padded its budget rather than returning the money to the state treasury. So, in other words, they came into this money and they treated it like, hey, look at this money we found. We can just blow it on stuff. All of the spending came under the leadership of Joshua Waits, a former Clayton County Sheriff's deputy. He recently announced he's resigning after he was accused of falsifying his resume. They alleged that he had a degree listed on his resume that he did not actually have. But the department then fired him 2 days before his planned resignation, after the Atlanta Journal-Constitution and Channel 2 began asking questions about how all this money is being spent. Waits and his staff blew through forfeited cash under Waits' leadership. By its own accounting, the Department of Revenue spent $2.9 million over the last 4 years leading up to that resignation, and they have another $2.5 million that they haven't spent yet. Representative Scott Turner of Holly Springs, a legislative critic of civil asset forfeiture, said it's unjustifiable. Trinkets, souvenirs, for what purpose? It doesn't help fight crime. It doesn't help anyone get get better at their job. It's a trophy. News organizations have often repeatedly highlighted how local and state agencies have abused forfeiture money, and the legislature has made efforts to tighten the laws. Since Attorney General Chris Carr is researching if the Revenue Department broke state law by holding on to seized assets instead of returning the money to the general fund, it's an interesting question. Because if they're blowing the money, they're not using it for a lawful purpose, right? Carr's spokesperson said, our office is aware and closely reviewing the matter. The office is also continuing to work with the State Inspector General on its referral that Waits be subject to possible prosecution for falsifying his state application. Revenue Commissioner David Curry declined interview requests recently from these two news organizations. Late Wednesday, the department issued a statement that said, in part, the department is taking these concerning allegations very seriously and is fully cooperating with the Inspector General's investigation. It is the department's goal to operate with integrity and transparency, and DOR is committed to making all necessary changes to ensure confidence in agency operations. Records show that Waits' office obtained the money now under investigation from criminal investigations, most of which appear to involve allegations of illegal use of video gambling machines, often found in convenience stores. State law allows stores to have the machines as long as winnings aren't paid out in cash. When state and local authorities believe operators are breaking the law, they file criminal charges. But they can also file a civil case against the owner of the store and seize the store's assets, which is what they've been doing. Now, quite often, owners of the stores agree to settle the cases, turning over their stores to authorities. The stores are then sold, and the money from those sales is divided up among the Georgia Lottery, local district attorney's offices, local law enforcement agencies, and sometimes the State Department of Revenue. But a little more confusing is what the revenue officials have been doing with that money. and how they've been monitoring it. In its statement to the AJC, the department said it was not even aware of some of the items purchased with forfeiture funds and that officials would not have approved them had they known. So some items also remain unaccounted for, meaning they were purchased with this money and they disappeared. Receipts obtained by the AJC, that's the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, and Channel 2, show the Special Investigations Office spending ranged from the merely curious to the outrageous. In a 2-year period, 2015-16, nearly $5,000 in seized cash went to Petco for dog food, salmon jerky treats, canine toothbrushes, and toys shaped like sumo wrestlers and boom boxes. The Special Investigations Office does not enforce drug laws, but records indicate that it does have a drug-sniffing dog. So maybe that dog got $5,000 in pet food and salmon jerky. In August 2018, the office went on a shopping spree at Staples and returned with wireless headphones, a microwave, a toaster oven, a vacuum cleaner, trash cans, and staplers, and other items often found in the state's inventory of office supplies. After last year's Super Bowl, the Department of Revenue spent almost $10,000 in seized funds to buy commemorative law enforcement badges and special desktop frames to display them. 19 of the 34 badges went to the department's special agents, but included in the order was a badge for the former commissioner, Governor Brian Kemp, and the sheriff of Butts County. I'm not making that up. In 2017, the Revenue Department spent $730,000 on 31 new vehicles, including a Ford F-350, which Waits used as his personal car. The department has 22 take-home cars, 20 of which are assigned to sworn officers. In its Thursday statement, the department said Waits' truck has been reassigned to another officer in the division. The department is currently auditing its fleet of vehicles after a report of potential misuse, according to the statement. The list goes on. In May of 2019, they bought almost $20,000 in gym equipment, $2,500 of which was just delivery and installation charges. Also last year, the office bought 60 Fitbit fitness trackers and 300 specially printed stress balls shaped like beer mugs and wine bottles. Those stress balls cost $759 and were given away at a training conference for department investigators last fall. In its statement, officials at the Revenue Department said if they'd been asked, they would have denied that charge. The department does not believe these items are an appropriate representation of DOR, and these items will not be purchased again. Well, you've already got them. You don't need them again. Still looming is a determination from the Attorney General if it was entitled to share of civil forfeiture in the first place regarding the Revenue's office. State law says money seized by the state is subject to appropriation from the general fund. This seems to say that state forfeiture funds should first be deposited into the general fund and then be dispersed as determined by the General Assembly, which makes most sense. In most of our government settings, whether it's the federal or the state, the legislature is who determines who gets money. Spending bills always start in the House, for instance, in Washington. The Georgia Bureau of Investigation doesn't keep the money it seizes as part of criminal investigations. Any state assets we recover, we turn over to the general fund. It's been our policy not to accept state funds. Holding on to cash and other assets would cut out a key step in government accountability, he said, referring to GBI Director Vic Reynolds. The spending should be approved by a separate body answerable to the public like the legislature. Hey, great minds think alike. Gwinnett County District Attorney Danny Porter, who has studied the state forfeiture law, said he believes state agencies are not entitled to receive shares of assets seized in state-initiated forfeitures. So it's a moot point as to whether they're spending the money on legitimate law enforcement purposes. They shouldn't be spending it at all. Porter said he's required to review annual asset forfeiture reports from agencies inside Gwinnett County to make sure they are spending the money for approved law enforcement uses. If he finds improper expenditures, he can give the money an amount. He can give the agency an amount of time to correct them, or he can bar the agency from receiving state funds for up to 2 years. When told that Revenue had spent some of the forfeiture funds on Fitbits and exercise equipment, the DA said, if I was looking at a local agency spending and saw that, I'd say that's not a legitimate expense. In its statement, the Revenue Department said the Fitbits were purchased in 2018 under a prior administration, and current department leadership cannot speak to the rationale of the purchase. It's great. You blame the last guy. And when the guy in office gets in trouble, you fire him, and then you blame him. The state's forfeiture law also says it's the intent of the General Assembly for the money to help fund the state's indigent defense system, the Georgia Crime Victims Emergency Fund, law enforcement and prosecution agency programs, and a few others. According to annual disclosures required by law, the Department of Revenue had not shared any of its forfeiture collections with the Indigent Defense System, Crime Victims Fund, or the judiciary. It has only spent the funds on itself. So again, what we're getting at here is in Georgia. This is one example where a department in Georgia came into some money. And this is the Office of Special Investigations at the Georgia Department of Revenue. And they spent this money like it was just found money that, we can just spend it. And they spent $2.9 million of it in questionable ways. And they had another $2.5 million they hadn't spent yet. And as this all became public, the guy in charge quickly resigned. And as more questions got asked, instead of resigning, they fired him before his resignation took place. And everyone is now saying, well, the money is earmarked to go certain places, and it never went there. And as I pointed out earlier, when you incentivize people, telling people that if you seize money, you get to keep it, they start grabbing money. And with little oversight, apparently, they'll just spend it the way they see fit. The way they see fit is Fitbits and stress balls and commemorative badges for the Super Bowl. We'll steal your money and then we'll blow it. And that also speaks to human nature. If you work really, really hard for something, you're less likely to squander it. If you steal it from somebody, obviously you didn't work very hard for it, so you're just going to squander it. So that's sad. But anyways, that's another great but shocking example of the absurd lengths to which civil asset forfeiture has gone. And more of these examples will come forward. And as they are exposed, I suspect more and more people are going to rise up and say, hey, we got to stand up and do something about civil asset forfeiture. I'm going to keep complaining about it because it's one of the things that upsets me the most. And from the reactions I get from my audience, I know it's something that upsets you guys as well. So I'm glad you guys follow along with that. I'll apologize once again. I've got a subconjunctival hemorrhage in my left eye. Doesn't hurt. Doesn't affect anything except it just looks kind of goofy. So, hey, I got to make the videos. Time to make the donuts. Questions, comments, put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. Life doesn't require that we be the best, only that we try our best.